Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sneha. So today I'm going to be sharing my thoughts, swatches, and also comparison with other palettes, and also create 3 different looks using the new Pat McGrath Celestial Divinity palette. So if that's something that interests you, please continue watching. So I received the palette last evening, and unfortunately the sun was already down, or else I would have posted the swatches for this palette on my Instagram. But I have posted it today, so definitely check it out. I'm going to link my Instagram in the description box below so you can have a look. But this is what the outer packaging looks like. Simple cardboard packaging, which is quite nice. And this time I'm not very keen on saving this one. Compared to the other Mthrshp palettes, I still have the outer packaging for those. And this is what the palette looks like inside. It is beautiful on the outside to look at, but it still doesn't give you Pat McGrath vibes, if that makes sense. We'll get to the packaging in a bit, but this is what the outside looks like. You do get all the names of the shades on the back, which I do appreciate. And inside, you get a decent sized mirror right there. And this is what the shades look like. Now, I personally feel that this palette is a good mix of both warm tones and cool tones. Now, when I say warm tones, I'm thinking of reds, oranges, orange yellow, those kind of undertones. Whereas when I'm thinking of cooler tones, I'm thinking of more greens, blues, purples, and also red violets. So this palette, although it looks quite purple heavy, I think there are about 8 shades which are all purple pink toned. But overall, it's a good balance of both warm and cool tones. The palette retails for £60 and you get 1.1 gram of product in each pan, which is smaller than the regular Mthrshp palettes, which is completely fine. I find that this is good value for money, especially if you are in the market to just try out Pat McGrath palettes. You do not want to spend or commit to a full Mthrshp palette. This is a good palette to try because you do get to try almost all the finishes, I would say, in the Pat McGrath family of formulas, except for the special glistening kind of special shades in the big larger Mthrshp palettes and also the smaller quads. You do not see that formula in here, although one shade I feel like may be similar to that. But overall, you do get Pat McGrath vibes from this palette when you feel and play around with the eyeshadows. One thing I would highly recommend with this palette is also picking up a mixing medium. This is the Mthrshp mixing medium. This is a tiny one. They're relatively inexpensive. A large one is about £7 here in the UK, but they make your eyeshadow game so much stronger with less fallout. So definitely try and invest in a Mthrshp mixing medium. So if you'd like to learn more about mixing mediums and how you can use them, I have a video which I'm going to link right here, so you can check that one out. But this is definitely one of the top mixing mediums that came out in that video as well. I'm excited that Pat McGrath is also trying and creating palettes with more eyeshadows in terms of number of shades, but with less quantity. I would rather have this instead of something which has like 2 grams or 5 grams of products, just because I have so many eyeshadow palettes that I don't see myself going through a single eyeshadow pan anytime soon in my life. So I do appreciate smaller pans, but with more color options for a decent price. So I'm very happy that she decided to go this route. Now, amongst these shades, these first 2 columns are a repeat shades, and same with the last 2 columns right here. These 2 columns right here are all new eyeshadows. So that's the reason for the controversy, because the first 2 and the last 2 columns are repeats, especially if you have the Star Wars palettes, which was launched, I believe, last year. Now, if I had those palettes, I would personally be pissed because I paid so much more for those palettes. And now the same shades are available in a smaller pan, but at a cheaper price for everybody else. But on the other hand, if you think about how many people were not able to access the Star Wars collection, such as me, I don't know if I was not interested or the fact that it was sold out. I was not able to pick up any of the Star Wars palettes, so I'm so happy that I'm able to try out those shades and the textures, some of which are duochromes, in this new palette. So it's a catch-22. Either way you look at it will be based on what you already have in your collection. But as far as I'm concerned, I absolutely love this concept. Now let's talk about the packaging of the palette. So the palette itself is made out of cardboard, but it is magnetized, so that's good about the palette. You do get a nice decent sized mirror on the other side, and then the eyeshadows, of course. And then you have these little tabs at the corner, if you can see that, which keep the mirror upright. So if you're doing your makeup with this palette, it's quite easy to hold it up, and that just fell down. But it is. So if I were to put it on the floor, I mean on my table right here, I can see my eyes and do my eye makeup, if that makes sense. So that's really neat. But I've heard some people's tags have been tearing off. So I'm not sure what the deal is, but I just received it yesterday and it's been holding up okay so far. It does feel fairly sturdy. I don't think it's very clumsy, and the cardboard is quite thick, so it's not going to bend or break, I feel like. And I'm happy about the packaging in a way, because I can now carry this in my freelance kit. Now, every time I think about carrying a Mthrshp palette or any of those smaller quads, although they're beautiful packaging and they feel so luxurious, they are a pain when I have to carry it in as a part of the freelance kit. Just because I'm already carrying around so much weight, I do not want something that weighs me down even more. So this is a welcome change, especially for pro artists. Now in the demo for the 3 looks that I've created, you will see that I've used 12 out of the 18 eyeshadows. So I think I have a fairly good idea about all the shades, because I have also swatched them before applying them on my eyes. So I will give you my final thoughts at the end of the video. Let's jump into the swatches first, and also the 3 eye looks. Now, before applying any eyeshadow on my eyes, I've primed my eyelids with the NARS eye primer for all the 3 looks. Okay, so for this first look, I'm thinking I'll do something very soft, pink, berry kind of toned. So first going in with Venusian Orchid. That is such a pretty, soft pink kind of a shade, very feminine. You can imagine this just applied all over the lid and looking absolutely beautiful. That looks beautiful. Just going to add a little bit more towards the inner portion of the crease. Then just blending it lightly upwards. Also going to run the shade lightly along my lower lash line. And the brush I'm using is Wayne Goss brush number 16. It's quite a large brush, but that helps me get quite a diffuse look. Okay, like so. Then I'm going into this shade right here called Venomous Void, and I'm going to apply that to the outer V of my eye. So first just packing it on to get good intensity. And because I'm using a blending brush, the application is going to be softer. If you want more intensity, you can definitely switch to a flat brush. So gradually building up the color on the outer V and then blending it into the crease, into the previous shade we have. I'm going to also add it to the outer portion of the lower lash line, like so. So now we have a gradient. Next to it, I'm going to be using ODC on the outer half of the lid. And I've switched to a flat brush. This is by My Kitco. This is 1.5. Going to see how this one packs on, and if it doesn't, then I'll probably use a mixing medium. This one seems to be doing just fine. This is definitely one of those shades which has a little bit of texture, so you can expect fallout from this. And then on the inner half, I'm going to use the shade Cosmic. So with the same brush. Also taking it along the inner corner of the eye and meeting it with the shades we have along the lower lash line previously. Okay, like so. Now that this eye is complete, I do want to see how the shade ODC goes on damp. So I'm going to use the Mehron mixing medium and use the same shade damp. So applying the shade damp, you can see that the intensity is definitely built up compared to applying it wet. So there you get two options. So if you want a softer daytime look, apply the shades dry, and then if you want to amp it up for the evening, you can apply the shades damp. Doing the same with the shade in the inner corner, which is Cosmic. Again, you can see it packing on a lot more impact. It also minimizes fallout, so that's why I tend to prefer using mixing medium with textured eyeshadows. So I'm just going to complete this look with some mascara, and I'll be right back. So that completes look number 1. Come in closer so you can have a better look at the eye. By the way, the mascara I've used is the Pat McGrath Fetish Eyes Mascara on my top lashes. And on my bottom lashes, I have the MAC Extended Play Giga Black Lash Mascara. Now I have quite a neutral, warm tone kind of a lip with it. But if you were to apply like a pinky nude kind of a lipstick, this eye look will look absolutely stunning. So that is look number 1. Moving on to look number 2. I feel like I want to play with some of the colors from this palette, so this one's going to be more of a creative eye. And to form the outline of this eye, I feel like I'm going to be using a pencil. So this is by Pat McGrath. This is their Permagel Ultra Glide Eye Pencil, and the shade is Black Coffee, so it's like a dark brown, so like a black brown. So feel free to use any eye kohl pencil that you may have. You want something that is easy to blend, but sets quite nicely. So this is perfect. So I'm just going to create a shape first. I have no idea how this is going to look, but to try applying some on the lower lash line. I'm going to blend it out with my Kitco 1.16 brush. Now these do set quite fast, so be prepared to blend them quite quickly. And following this lower lash line, I'm going to create a wing heading up. So again, I'm doing short strokes and then blending immediately. Just working on that shape, keeping the eye open and looking straight ahead. So I know how high the eyeshadow is coming. And stretching the skin to blend out the pencil. I have a natural scar right there, so I'm going to bring it beyond that point. Okay, just going to refine the shape a bit. Okay, so this pencil outline kind of gives me a framework for the eye look. So first I'm going to use the dark purple shade. This is called Smoked Amethyst, and with the same brush, I'm going to pack it everywhere we have the eyeliner and also bring it in towards the eye. Now this shade does have micro glitter, so just be careful with it. It's like a deep blackened purple shade. Just going to bring it in slightly on the outer V of the eye. Just bringing it lower, filling in that portion. Again, if you don't feel confident with creating that shape with just a brush, you can always use a tape. Also going to fill it in right here. The next one we're going to use is Fuchsia Shock, which is this beautiful red-violet shade. So I'm going to apply that right next to where we have the smoked amethyst. I'm going to use my Kitco 1.5 brush for this. Don't worry about blending the two shades yet. So that's the shade packed on there. It does have a blue purple kind of a shift to it, if you can see that on camera. So now with that first brush, I'm just diffusing out the edges between that purple shade and this fuchsia shade. If you need to, you can go back into the smoked amethyst. Just apply a little bit along the edges of where the two shades meet. Okay, like so. Then with the same flat brush, I'm going to use a mixing medium, and I'm using the shade Megabyte. I'm going to apply it to the inner half of the eyelid. I'm also going to take the green along the lower lash line, connecting it with the smoked amethyst. And then lastly, for my inner corner, I'm going to use the shade Galactic Gold. And again, I'm using a little bit of mixing medium for the shade, because it does have a little bit of texture. Taking it on a Kitco Pro 1.2 brush. So I'm going to finish off this eye with some mascara, and I'll be right back. Again, using the same mascara pairing, this is the finished look. It is quite a gloomy day here in London, so I'm not sure how much of the colors you can see, but hopefully you can see that. And because I used mixing medium with most of the shades, there's not much of fallout, as you can see under the eyes. I've not cleaned up anything for both the looks. So if you'd like to see for under eye fallout, there's almost nothing despite using such dark colors, especially for this look. Now again, with this eye, you can definitely pair it with a more nude lip, and maybe in the pink family, it'll go really well with this eye look. It's a more strong, edgy kind of a look, which I absolutely love. Now on to the third and final look. So I've already completed the look on one eye, so we're going to replicate it on this eye. First, I'm using the shade Major Mahogany with the Wayne Goss brush number 16. I'm going to apply it very lightly in my crease. So keep a very light hand with the shade. So using it both as a transition shade and also to deepen up later on the outer V. Gently tapping into the pan because these shades are very pigmented. Then gradually building it up and moving it upwards towards the brow. Next, taking more of that same shade, and I'm going to start building up on the outer V of the eye. So just tapping it on the outside. Then connecting it with the outer corner of the lower lash line. This is just to give us a guide of the angle at which I want to pull this eyeshadow out. Then re-intensifying the shade and bringing it slightly into the crease, only till halfway. Next, I'm going to use the shade Bronze Nebula with a damp brush. This is my Kitco 1.5 brush, and I'm going to use it with the Mehron mixing medium. And then to blend between the shade and the brown, I'm going back in with that brown shade on a smaller brush. This is my Kitco 1.16 brush. Just diffusing at the edge, just blending it. For the lower lash line, I'm going into the shade Saturnia, and I'm using the brush my Kitco Pro 1.20 brush. And again, I'm going to use the shade Damp with the Mehron mixing medium. And the shade we're going to run along the lower lash line. Now you can stop here and just do the inner corner highlight and maybe apply the brown all over if you want to keep it more neutral. But I like the pop of red along the lower lash line. So I'm going to add the shade along here. I'm just blending it towards that brown shade, and then cleaning off the same brush and using the shade Lunar Champagne and applying that to the inner corner. Going to apply the shade Damp, blend it in with the red and also with the gold on the top. And I already have mascara from the first look, so I'm just going to add some more and I'll be right back. Sorry, we're losing sunlight here, but this is the finished look. And on my lips, I have the Charlotte Tilbury lip pencil in the shade Hot Gossip, I believe, and a little bit of clear lip gloss just in the center, but most of my lip is quite matte. So this is the final look. I think it pairs really nicely with this eye look. Let me know in the comment section below which of the 3 eye looks was your favorite. I think my personal favorite was the second one. I wish I had done that on both the eyes instead of this, but it wasn't planned. So that's what happens when I'm trying to do all 3 looks in one day. But I'm not mad at this look either. But do let me know which one was your favorite in the comment section below. Now that you've seen the swatches and the 3 looks I've created with this palette, let's move on to the portion where I'm going to compare this palette with my existing Pat McGrath palette collection. So I'm trying to look for shades or finishes or formulas that look and feel similar, just to see how much of repeat shades I may have in my existing collection. So let's move on to that next. So this is all my Pat McGrath eyeshadow palettes collection. So what I'll do next is compare the shades in the Celestial Divinity palette, the new one, and then let you guys know if there's any comparable shades in any of these other palettes. So in case you have the other ones and you're thinking of this one, you have a better idea. Now first comparing it with the Mthrshp 8 Divine Rose 2 palette, I really don't see any dupes for the shade. This one, again, if I compare it to these 2 mattes, this one is way different from these 2. This one has a little bit more purple and this one is definitely more on the reddish brown side. Again, nothing overlapping with the peach shade. With this one, again, I don't find any similarities, quite different from the Celestial Divinity. One shade that may be comparable but different textures is these 2. So I'm just going to quickly swatch those. You can see that. So the one from the Divine Rose 2 has a little bit more pink tones to it, whereas this one is more of a taupey shade. So when I swatch them, that's the Divine Rose 2, and then this is the Celestial Divinity. So there is difference between the 2 shades. Moving on, we don't have any hot pinks in here. We do not have the multi-chrome in here. This one possibly looks similar to this one, but the texture is quite different. But I will swatch those 2 for you guys. So again, this one is from Divine Rose 2, and this is from the new palette. So Divine Rose 2, and then the new palette. You can see that this one from the Celestial Divinity is a little bit more bronze compared to this one. Next, I don't really see any dupes for this one. This is a fantastic shade. This one, potentially similar to this gold, although the texture is quite different. So there you have it. That's from the Mthrshp 8. This is from the new palette. You can see that the Mthrshp 8 one is a slightly more orange tone in the gold compared to this one, which is more yellow based. So Mthrshp 8, this is the new palette. Again, different shades, but quite similar as you can see. So that's it in comparison with the Mthrshp 8. Next, comparing it with Mthrshp 3, the Subversive palette. There is no black in the new palette. I don't see anything similar to this one either. Nothing close to this one, nothing close to that. This one is way more cool toned than this brown. Nothing similar to that. This one might be similar to this, but I can definitely see that the texture is different in this one. But let's quickly swatch that. There you have that. As you can see, the one from the Mthrshp palette has a little bit more of a golden yellow shift. This one is more of a muted green, if that makes sense. So, Mthrshp palette, the new Celestial Divinity. You can see how much more muted this one is. Moving on, don't really see anything similar to this. This one, we could compare it with that shade right there, although the texture is going to be very different. So that's from the Mthrshp palette. It's a duochrome, absolutely stunning formula. This one, ooh, they are quite similar again, but you can see the difference in the texture and the reflectivity between the two shades. So this is from the Mthrshp palette. And then this is from the new Celestial Divinity palette. You can see that it's more muted and a more lighter shade of this one. Yeah. And again, with this shade, it has a pink purple shift, which I don't see right here. So that's it for Mthrshp 3. Next, comparing it with this Mthrshp Sublime Golden Opulence palette. That was the mini palette. Again, no dupes for this one. This brown is quite different from this. Hopefully you can tell on camera as well. This is more warm toned. But if you'd like, I'm just going to quickly compare the two. There you go. This is from the mini palette. This is from the Celestial Divinity palette. You can see it's more warm toned. Next, there's nothing similar to this. This one is kind of similar to this, but this one has more purple undertone compared to this one. Just do a quick swatch so you can see. There you go. So again, mini palette, and then the Celestial Divinity one. See more purple tones to it. Don't really see anything similar to this. And then this one, we can compare it with the gold one. So mini palette, and this one. Again, the one from the mini palette is slightly more orange toned compared to this one, which is very yellow undertoned. So mini palette, and then Celestial Divinity. That's it for the mini palette comparison. Next, comparing it to two of the quads that I have from last year's holiday collection. Let's start with this one. Again, nothing similar to this, nor do I have anything similar to this, nor this. This is more of a deeper burgundy than this red shade, which is more brighter. And this one looks similar to this one, so we can compare those two. The texture is quite different. So you can see that the shine on the special formula shades is way more than the regular shimmer shades from Pat McGrath. Also, the color is different. This one has a little bit more of an orange undertone compared to that one, which is like a true bronze color. So if I were to swatch those, this is from the quad, and this is from the new palette. You can see the orange undertone in this one. Let's also quickly compare these two reds right here. There you have it. It's more deeper and has a black base, whereas this is more of a stronger red shade. I would say this is probably more similar to Mthrshp 5, the red, fiery red shade. So this is again the quad. This is the new palette. Moving on to the second quad. I'm just going to get the other one away. This one looks like a hybrid between that and this, but it's not similar to any of those shades. This purple is again very different from this one. This has a lot of micro shimmer through it, whereas this is like a smooth shimmer shade. And then nothing compared to the blue or the green. And just to show you the gold one, I'm going to compare this with these two golds. So there you go. This is that one, so it's way lighter. And then this one is going to be way darker and more yellow. So the quad, and then the two shades from the new palette. So that's it for the quads. Lastly, let's compare them with the two mini ecstasy palettes. So this first one right here, there's nothing like the stunning teal shade. It's one of my absolute favorite shades. This one, again, there's nothing similar. The gold, I think might be the same one in both palettes. Let's have a look. It looks very similar. It probably is the same shade. There you go. So that's definitely a repeat. Moving on to this one, it looks very similar to it, but is deeper. But let's just quickly swatch that one as well. So this is the Mini Ecstasy palette. And then this one is from the new. They look very, very similar. They have different names, so I'm not sure what the deal is, but they look absolutely similar. Just that the purple in this one from the new palette is just a slightly bit more purple, if that makes sense, whereas this one has a little bit of gray black mixed into it, so it's slightly deeper. But that's if I'm being really nitpicky, but they look really, really similar and can definitely be used instead of each other. Next, let's compare this one with the shade and also the red shade right there. That's that. This one is a duochrome, which I know is repeated in that palette. And the third shade right there, so it's different from the other two. So that's the Ecstasy palette, and these are the two shades from the new palette. Way different. Okay, comparing this one. This one does have a green shift to it, so I'm curious to compare it with that, although they look different in the pan. They have different kind of a green shift, if that makes sense. Yeah, this is slightly more warmer green, this is a more cool toned green. So just comparing those two. This is the this is the Mini Ecstasy, and this is from the new palette. Then this one, there's nothing really similar. For this one, again, there isn't one similar. This one kind of is similar, but this one is definitely more orange based. So it looks like a baby between these two. And then this one is a definite repeat right here, which is the shade Corruption. So I already have the swatch from before from the new palette. I'm just going to put the Mini Ecstasy right below that. It is a repeat shade, so it's a perfect match. And lastly, for this one, I do not see any shades similar to it. And let's just compare this gold with this and maybe this one. So it looks more similar to this shade right here, but again, quite different in undertone. So this is from the Mini Ecstasy palette. I'm not going to swatch this one, I'll just swatch this one. Again, they look very different. Similar kind of family, but again, one is way lighter, the other one is a deeper shade. So if you have the two Mini Ecstasy palettes, you do have a couple of shades that are similar. I would say the yellow is a bang on dupe for this one. This purple one is kind of a repeat right here, I feel like, with very slight differences. And then between these, this one is definitely a repeat. So you definitely have at least 3 shades which are going to be repeated in the new palette. So that's it for this video. I really hope these swatches and eye looks were helpful for you guys in case you were thinking of picking up this palette. Overall, I really like the shades in this palette, especially because I was not able to get the Star Wars palettes. And as you can see from the 3 looks that I've created, I got 3 very different looks from the same palette, and I've not even used all the shades from the palette. So as you can see, this look right here gives me more of a Mthrshp 5 kind of a vibe, especially with that red. If I were to put that all over the lid, you can definitely get that kind of a vibe. Whereas my look number 1, I can see that I was able to create something very close to something I can create from maybe Divine Rose 2 palette. So if you were not able to pick up those palettes, maybe because of the cost or because they were sold out at some point, so you can definitely pick this one up and get maybe similar looks based on some of the shades, kind of similar to those palettes. And as I mentioned before, the only 2 or 3 repeat shades for me are from the Mini Ecstasy palettes, and those are like really tiny little shadows, so I don't mind that I have a larger size in here. Overall, I highly recommend picking up this palette, especially if you don't have the Star Wars palette. If you have that, and if you're a collector, maybe pick this one up. And if you're not a collector, skip on this palette. I'm sure there's plenty of palettes in the pipeline for Pat McGrath. If you enjoyed this video, definitely give it a thumbs up and also consider subscribing to my channel for more videos. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!